My name is Deanna Nadermann, and I am the Director of Behavioral Health Services and Special Projects for the court. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. There we go. Okay. Thank you. I am appreciative of Sarah going first, and I am very appreciative of Carrie and having all the technical difficulties. So I am hopeful that my presentation will breeze through and there won't be any issues. Okay, so the court is governed by two elected judges, Judge Carrie Bloom, who is our administrative judge, and then we also have Judge Stacey DeGraffenreid, who is our second judge. The court hears different kinds of cases. Most people, when they think of juvenile court, they think of delinquency cases, which are criminal cases. But we actually have jurisdiction over unruly cases. Unruly cases are cases that only children can commit. So if you think of truancy, runaway, curfew, those are only charges that children can commit, and they're called unruly. We also cover dependency, which is abuse, neglect, and dependency. Again, thinking of 241 kids that have been abused. Those cases fall under our jurisdiction. We also handle custody cases, and those are cases where they are unmarried parents. So if they're married, they go through the domestic relations court. If they are unmarried and there are custody issues, they come through us. And we also address child support related to those cases. So at the apex of our organization, we have the judges, and then we have our court administration. We have 16 directors, I am one of which, and then we also have magistrates that hear the cases. So typically a magistrate will hear the case, and if there's an appeal or if it is serious enough that it will go before one of our two judges. And then we have about 30 judges, or 30 magistrates, excuse me. And then we also have different departments within our court, such as the clerk's office, probation, diversion, the assessment center, behavioral health, our help center, and the youth detention center. Now, I could talk about juvenile court all day long, and I'm not going to do that. So I tried to kind of condense it down to what are some of the areas within juvenile court that I think would be relevant for you all. So if you have questions about any of the other things that we do, I'm happy to answer those, but I tried to kind of narrow it down to things that might be applicable to you all. So the first one is our Juvenile Court Help Center, and this was a partnership with Hamilton County Clerk of Courts and UC College of Law. And basically what we did is we created this help center for parents and grandparents who don't have the means to secure an attorney on their own, but need help in filing things related to custody, child support, shared parenting. And the goal is to give access to those families so that they can be prepared to come into court and talk about what their needs are so that we can assist them. We frequently see a lot of grandparents whose parents who can no longer take care of their children. The grandparents are now coming to us saying, we want to take custody, but they don't know how to do it. So this is an opportunity for them to have access on a limited basis to an attorney who can help them do those filings so that when they come into court, those filings don't end up getting dismissed on technicalities or because they don't have the proper information. Juvenile Court Assessment Center is near and dear to my heart. It is under my department, and this is a centralized intake screening process, service connection for children charged with delinquent and unruly offenses. We opened the assessment center in 2020. Not a really good time to do that, but we're really excited. We're seeing lots of increases in our numbers. We opened it with the goal of, one, trying to safely divert children from detention who should not be there. And we do that primarily through our domestic violence charges. A lot of times kids and families get into issues in their home, the police are contacted, they're brought to detention. We really don't have a lot of information on what's going on with that family. The assessment center takes all domestic violence charges. If they're held in our detention facility, we immediately start figuring out whether we can safely get them back. So that's one area of emphasis for the assessment center. We also prioritize assessment and service connection pre-adjudication. And what that means is typically before the assessment center, if a child was charged with an offense, They would go before a magistrate, they'd have a plea hearing, they may deny that charge. It may be set out for 6 to 8 weeks for a trial. That trial might be continued a couple of times. And then finally they would get to adjudication or a finding of guilt. We call it adjudication in the juvenile system, but in the adult system it's a finding of guilt. And at that time the magistrate would say, okay, I'm going to put you on probation so we can figure out what's going on. And that could be a lag time of 4, 6, sometimes even 8 months. So we all know that the best time to intervene with families is when they're in the midst of crisis. So if we're waiting 4, 6, 8 months after that time of crisis where they're charged, we weren't seeing a lot of traction. So what we decided to do was, if a magistrate felt that there was something going on that they wanted more information on, but it was before that finding of guilt, they would make a referral to the assessment center. And the assessment center would go in and they would meet with the family and they would gather documentation from the community and they would work with the family to identify a plan. And then they would put that plan in place with services. And this is all while that legal process was going on. So that hopefully when we got to the adjudication and there was a finding of guilt, there may no longer need to be involvement from the court because we've already got services in place and there haven't been any further issues related to what happened to bring them to our attention. Now, we do make sure that we are protecting children's rights. So when a referral is made pre-adjudication to the assessment center, there's language in the entry that states that whatever they disclose to our service navigators or our assessment center, that cannot be held against them in the adjudication or the trial phase. So if they say, yeah, I did hit my mom, we will not be pulled into court to say, he told me that he hit his mom. So we put protections in place to ensure that those kids can be very honest with us and really talk to us about what's going on without fear of having that held against them later down the road. And then finally, a big push for us is to increase and expand youth diverted from official processing. We know through research and best practices that it is really important for them to have the lightest touch needed with juvenile court. If we overserve them, if we put too many things in place, if we expose them too much to our process, that can actually increase the chances of recidivating. So we really try to identify when we can get in there, put services in place, assess what's going on, and get out without having a really tough touch from the juvenile court system. As of 2023, we've served 1,718 youth. We continue to see those numbers grow in 2024. We also have what I would consider the truest form of diversion, which are walk-ins and calls. We do everything we can to avoid having a parent file a charge against a child. We take all parent-signed complaints at the assessment center. Those are typically the unruly or incorrigibles, which are basically parents saying that they can't control their children. They will frequently come in, not because they want the court involved in their lives, but because they don't know what else to do. They're scared, they're afraid something's gonna happen to their child, they're at their wit's end, and they're like, this is my last stop, I don't know what else to do. And so a lot of times it's just listening to them talk to us about what's been going on and offering them opportunities to pick things in the community that they think might be helpful for them and their families. What we saw is that a referral to our service navigators, again, service navigators are just folks that will assess what's going on in that family and then find resources out in the community. Those can be official, traditional resources such as a connection to a provider in the community, or it can be non-traditional connections like finding a church in the community that will help provide clothing or other types of services. What we found was that when we connected kids and families to a service navigator, we found that 86% of those children do not come back in our court within 1 year of that connection. So we're pretty proud of that. Most of you, if you're involved with our delinquency system at all, are probably familiar with probation. And probation basically works with children who have been adjudicated, so they have been found guilty of whatever offense brought them to the court, and they rise to the level of needing oversight for a period of time. These are typically felony level children. We do not, as much as possible, we do not put misdemeanor children on probation. They're assigned a probation officer who, again, will continue to do assessments with those children. They will put services in place. They identify what the kids want to work on, as well as identifying what were the issues that brought them to the attention of the court, and ensure that there are services and connections to make sure that they don't come back. We always push evidence-based practices, so we do use EPICs and carry guides as those are all tools that the probation department uses in making connections with kids and helping them to make better choices. And then finally, we have our detention center. Most of you might know it as 2020, and the reason it's called 2020 is because that's the address, 2020 Auburn Avenue. You might also hear them call it the 40. So basically, the detention center is almost exclusively pre-adjudication. So children that are sitting in our detention center have not been found guilty of any offenses. They are sitting there because either the offense is so egregious that it is a community safety risk and we don't feel comfortable releasing them out to the community, or we have no place else for them to go. And unfortunately, that happens sometimes. Just to kind of give you a sense, when I first started, like Carrie, many years ago, 25 years with Hamilton County, children were being locked up for all kinds of offenses. If they didn't go to school, if they didn't listen to their parents, if they stole some candy from Walmart, those were offenses that typically they could be locked up for. At this point in time, you are not being admitted into our detention facility unless you're charged with a felony, and it has to be a serious felony. Again, to kind of give you perspective, we have at any given time probably around 15 children charged with murder. And that continues, unfortunately, to grow. We also see those children stay in our system for longer because they typically are bound over to the adult system. And there was a Senate bill that was passed that says if you committed an offense as a juvenile, even if you are bound over, you are held in a juvenile detention setting until your case has been completed. So unfortunately, we have some children sitting in our detention facility for 300 days, 600 days. It just depends on how quickly it moves over on the other side of the street. While they're in detention, they get school, they get services. We have therapy dogs that come in and work with the children. We have community agencies that will come in. A program, Nevertheless, comes in weekly and works with our girls. We have yoga. We have just all different kinds. If there's an organization that wants to come in and work with our children, we try our best to allow them to come in and spend time with our children, helping to just alleviate the pressure that goes on with being in our detention facility. For 2023, we had 850 unique youth that were admitted into our facility. On any given day, we have about 85 kids. And just again, to give you a sense, every week we sit down and go through all the children in detention to determine, do they need to be there and can we get them out safely? And then the average length of stay is 33 days. That's it's not quite accurate in that that takes in those Senate bill kids, so that tends to drive our average length of stay. When you have kids staying for 600 and 700 days, kids typically can stay in our detention center anywhere from a couple of hours to years, depending on what's going on in the adult system. And that's it. Hope that was informative. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about the training and credentials of the folks that work in the assessment center?
Sure. So the question was, can I talk about the training and credentials for the people that work in the assessment center? Our service navigators typically Most of them have bachelor's degrees in social work, counseling, psychology, any of those kinds of things. But we also recognize that there are folks that work with children and have been working with children for many years who really do a great job. So you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. I believe the last time I looked at our job description, it is a high school diploma with, I think, 6 years of working closely with children and families. Yes, sir.
The status of Hillcrest?
Hillcrest. Yes, the status of Hillcrest, for those of you that may or may not know, it's been in the news quite a bit though, Hillcrest is a post-disposition facility that the court used as a placement option for children who can't be maintained safely in their homes. And it closed in, I want to say maybe a year ago in June or July of 2023. We have put out a bid. We released that in November of 2023. We had several bidders. At this point in time, we are still going through those RFPs. And we hope to have a decision soon, but there's a lot that goes into it, and there's budgeting issues that go into it as well. The idea that we have moving forward, whereas once before, it's 12 cottages can serve about 144 kids. Over the past 10 to 12 years, we probably only used about 2 or 3 of those cottages. The idea is to open the campus completely back up and have 144 beds. We will divide those between about 24 to 36 would be for our traditional correctional kids. Those are kids who have committed offenses that are serious enough that they have to go someplace, they can't go home. We also want to have around 24 to 36 beds, and don't add my math up because I'm just kind of on the fly here, but 24 to 36 beds for serious behavioral health issue kids. And then I'm very, very excited. We'll have 60 respite beds. So those are kids that are waiting on placement. Those are kids who can't go home for whatever reason. Unfortunately, children are brought to our detention center and parents won't come get them. So our only other option is meet them, and frequently they are full. And so this will be another option for us to send children while we try and figure out where they can go. So it's coming. I don't know exactly when. Thank you. Other questions?
Oh, in the back.
Oh, yes.
As a community partner, what is the fastest and easiest way to reach out to someone to discuss like concerns? So let's say I'm with DDS and I am open with a youth, have concerns regarding truancy. What would be the easiest way to like reach out to express my concerns, to get updates regarding the court case?
Sure.
I found the process to be kind of confusing. So, yeah.
We do that on purpose. No, just kidding. The court, like I said, I could talk for hours, and the court is a very big organization, and sometimes it can be unwieldy. And so what I would recommend to anybody that just wants some information right off the bat, call our assessment center. We have access to everything. So we have access to what's going on probation. We have access to what's going on in the court hearings. So even though it may not necessarily apply to a diversion kid or unofficial kid, we can look that information up, and that's like kind of like a one-stop shop. I could send you to the clerks, I could send you to case managers, but we can do it for you. And my assessment center manager will kill me now that we're going to have all these phone calls. But I really do think that's the most centralized place. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much.